Hello, and welcome to the Dad and Sons podcast. We are officially a man down. I can't say we're under NDA, but we think George has infiltrated the White House.
Yes.
And is there to assassinate Donald Trump if he does not relinquish the throne of America to Joe Biden this week. Or by the time you hear, oh my God, by the time they hear this, there will be maybe a new president. Or maybe not. Maybe there's 4 more years of doom. But that's why we sent George in. I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. Ultimately, George is not here. We just have myself, Liam, and joining me, as always, my wonderful, sexy friend, Matt Visual. How you doing, Matt?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Welcome to my show. Welcome to my. I am both the dads and the sons.
So it's a pleasure to be a guest on this show. I've been a guest for years.
It's a pleasure every week to guest on my own show. Wait, technically, don't we like rotate anyway the host for the week? So the other two are the guests for that week? I'm not really sure. How do we do this?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's anarchy now. It's just the two of us again. We can do whatever the hell we want. Daddy's not here. And I don't mean that George is the dad. It's just that he's daddy, metaphorically. He tells us off.
He doesn't change the subject on us. Nothing. It's just all.
We can air all of our dirty laundry and grievances out.
Yeah.
George won't let me eat cake at night. All of those horrible things. But speaking of, I mean, we can talk about games that are 1, not set in Greece, 2, sponsored by Curiosity Stream, and 3, old as shit. Matt, what the hell have you been playing?
Yo, to be honest, man, it's been a week for me. It's been a week. I have slowly played some Final Fantasy XII to see if I liked it. Yeah.
Ooh.
And I have slowly played some Heartbound. But man, let me tell you, when I'm home from work, I'm just like playing a little bit. I'm just like, oh, okay. And I just go right to sleep.
Yeah, just that typical like
yeah. It's like, oh, I play a couple matches. I'm like, oh, okay. I wanted to talk about FF12. We were having our little Q&A, and as I was playing it, yeah, it people were saying that it's kind of like Star Wars, and I was like, oh shit.
That's what everybody says. Everybody who has no nuanced opinion of that game says it's like Star Wars.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, I get it. Like because there's just the way it feels. But what I realized, it's FF14. Is it the same people or same guy or? It's the online game.
I don't know about that actually.
It's the
how
same,
so? What in what way?
Like the way you go from one area to the next, the way the combat system, the little lines. It's FF14.
Well, 14 definitely took that from 12. Yeah. It took a hell of a good targeting system, really, to be honest. Like it's very
yeah.
It's visually not drawing a straight line, which is really hard to see when all characters are of a certain size, but having like a nice arcing thing so you can see over the top of enemies. That's really smart. Like a lot of people should have already been doing that anyway.
And the combat system.
So that's what I wanted to ask you about. How are you finding the programming, basically? Considering you were getting yourself a little into, scripting and programming recently before you made a giant ass gun. Like, how are you enjoying?
I got real busy.
So,
well, I don't know if I can really talk about the programming. So it seems like that game. I'm pretty sure it gets like the combat gets a little faster later on. I heard about combos. But it feels like...
I mean, it gets to a point. So the 12 is this weird game where when you're good at it, you get to a point where the game just plays itself. It is that JonTron video over and over again. The game's just playing itself, Matt. Like, once you understand what you want each character to do, you can literally just program them in the menu.
Gambit system.
In the gambits to do exactly what in every situation you want them to, and then you just let them do it. And that's it. So which version are you playing? Are you playing the one that you can fast forward the game speed and stuff? Okay. I'm sure that helps.
It does. But it also doesn't make the game feel real. It doesn't like it makes me feel like I'm cheating. But when you don't, because it's there, you want to use it.
Yeah.
You want to use it because it's so slow.
When Bravely Default added not only the speed up option, but also the ability to choose how many random battles you wanted. You could either have like 0 or like 0.5 times, so you get less. You could literally like, change the game to your specifications. So like the things that annoy people about JRPGs, you could kind of like skimp over. I thought that was like a real bold move of Square at the time, but I loved it. And I wanted more games to carry that over. And I was happy to see 12, well, the remaster anyway, have that kind of options, because if JRPGs want to survive, I think they need that kind of stuff. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in 7 that helped the remake, but it is interesting. I don't know. I think it goes back to what type of gamer you are, maybe, but time is money, baby.
Yeah, it sure is. Like, and I feel like it's one of those things where it's just like, I want to play the game naturally. It almost makes me want to load up like the old, it was on PS2. Load it up on the PS2 and on the emulator.
Still
and
looks
do it.
Gorgeous. Still looks gorgeous. Honestly,
it looks good. Yeah,
I haven't played the remaster specifically. The last time I played 12 was the PS2 version back when I was in university, when I bought like my first CRT monitor, when I first got into like retro game collecting. And I was like, oh, I have my own little CRT TV. I'm going to build a little collection from now on. And one of the first games I think Dragon Quest VIII and Final Fantasy 12 was what I was playing at the time. And 12 just, man, those visuals even then. And I mean, the remaster looks brilliant too, but yeah, it was hot. It was good stuff.
Like, I would say, like, I wish I played it back then so I can feel some type of nostalgia for it, because I think that would help get through that beginning. It's
the beginning is slow as hell.
It's slow. Like, not to say it didn't start off, because I remember we were talking about like in the beginning of Final Fantasy, they always had like this impact. It does have that impact, but it didn't like really slows down.
Yeah,
and let me tell you something. I'll play that game just to see Fran the whole fucking time.
It took us 6 minutes, but I wondered when you were gonna start talking about Fran.
Holy shit, Fran. The voice, the looks, God. I mean, all the characters look good in that game, right?
Yes.
I was a little worried about the main character, but I actually like the main character looks all right. Like, he's a child, but
I mean,
right.
Akihiko Yoshida's art is fantastic, and here I go again, Matt. One of those lovely stories you love so much. Actually,
I met him.
Isamu-san, what's his name? Isamu Kamikogyo. He has a really difficult Japanese name, actually. Yeah. I think it's Kamikogyo-san. He was one of the main concept artists, or one of the artists on the game, and he's actually the guy who designed like a lot of the characters. Ate a burrito with him once in Kyoto. And now I didn't even know who. Burrito. Just he came to one of those taco nights we have. Because a friend of mine is another artist who runs a studio here in Kyoto. I'm actually wearing his studio shirt now, 17-bit. And he, back in the day when he was, he did a partnership with the Square or something. He's old dude, Jake Kazdal. But he worked on like resin and stuff, and he invited Isamu-san to come to the taco night. And yeah, I was talking to him, and it took me like 20 minutes before somebody told me who he was. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah. Dude who did Final Fantasy 12. Right. Okay. Now he's like working with some sort of freelancer. But anyway, back to the point being that the art in that game, I think, is like top notch. And I'm so glad there are games like Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff like that that are not like, Nomura doing everything like all the time. Why Nomura all the time? But
Wait. We got to get back to the burrito here. Like, do you have burritos in Japan? I didn't know you had burritos in Japan.
We have some pretty good burritos in Japan. I feel like Mexican food. And this is coming from an English person, so you can deny everything I'm saying. because obviously English people don't know shit about Mexican food. But to my taste buds, the burrito is very good, especially here in Kyoto. There's like 3 places in Kyoto for Mexican food, and they're all pretty top notch.
Really?
So that was the possibly enjoyable part of that conversation, apart from the fact that I got to talk about Final Fantasy XII, which, you know, is a game that not that many people are into compared to the rest of the series of games, which does surprise me.
But okay, with the rest of the series, are we talking about we're talking about the 7s, the 8s, the 9s?
We're talking about. We're
not talking about like the 1 through 5, right? Like no one talks about 1 through 5.
Well, 4 and 5 and 6, yes, people talk about. Nobody talks about 1, 4 and 5, 2 and 3.
Okay.
4 is one of my favorites, and
really?
so my trifecta is obscure, obviously minus Final Fantasy Tactics because you know that's a spin-off. 4, 6, and 12 are personally my favorites. I am a fan of, but not the biggest fan of, 8, 7, and 9, and I actually am somebody who doesn't like 9 that much. So I played 4 on the PSP, the complete collection that did the remaster, and I thought that was a hell of a good game. 6, of course, everybody knows is my favorite Final Fantasy, but 12 is one I played on the PS2 when I was in university, and this is after I'd got into the series by playing 10 and everything back then. And I loved it. I had a great time with it. And I didn't know about all of the sort of distaste for it. I don't know why. Maybe because it came after 10. It was the next main game after 10, 11 being the MMO. And people were like, well, 10 is one of the best games of all time.
Wait,
which
what?
Arguably.
Really?
A lot of people, 10 is easily, it's in Japan, it's the number 1.
With Titus? And the fucking blitzball bullshit.
Hey, really? I like 10 as well. Come on, calm down. 10's great too. I
beat it, and I like 10 too as well. I mean,
in Japan, 10 is the number 1 ranked. 7 is number 2.
No way.
Yeah, 10 is the most liked Final Fantasy in Japan.
That's so interesting to me. Oh, I guess Yuna was in it. That was when Yuna appeared, right? And she's iconic, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it's the first, not the first, but it's the first, next gen Final Fantasy. So you had 7 go from, the 2D to the 3D, but then you had 8, 9, which, didn't improve much. Looks great. Mm-hmm. I mean, arguably 8 looks like wank, but it was 10 that truly then everyone was like, holy fuck, this game is gorgeous. Those CGI graphics and everything. Oh my God, could have blown my load kind of feeling about it.
Yeah.
But then 12, I feel like it was such a drastic change, going to Ivalice, not having the same sort of character designers, having completely wild battle system and stuff. Obviously, the start is very slow and, let's not beat around the bush here, right? Vaughn is a piece of shit and nobody likes him, which is fine. I understand that. But, as the game goes on and you meet more people and you have Balthier and Fran and everybody in your team, come on, that game gets really good and you get to be a sky pirate. A sky pirate. How cool is that?
I want to get to that point. It's funny, that's why I said I wish I played these games back then. Because back then, our tolerance for moments of story fuck ups and moments of bad voice acting didn't really get us it didn't really shock us much. It's just oh, okay, yeah. We were just listening and enjoying the experience. Nowadays, we have so much TV shows and all this, back in the days, we had action films that were extremely popular, that were all corny and shit. We didn't care about that. Now we kind of do. Now you've realized certain things, at least I didn't care about when I was younger. Now I kind of do. So when I watch
I probably
it,
care less these days.
Huh? You care about it less? I think I care about more honestly, these days. Yeah.
Somebody I saw a thread recently about Destiny and people talking about does story matter in video games again, that old chestnut and stuff, and it came to him with the realization that it really takes a lot for me to give a shit about stories in video games these days because they're all not
that's
that
right.
great.
That's right. I remember you saying that. Right. I like it needs to be just decent enough, but mostly the gameplay. So when the gameplay is not like solid, like the story has to kind of carry it for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And the gameplay is just like, the puzzles are easy. Like it's not to say it needs to be hard because I'm not a fan of hard puzzles. I like that easy, like going like, okay, this makes sense puzzles. Not too easy, but makes sense puzzles. Yeah, but I think I want to push through to try to get, because I pushed through Final Fantasy 7 and 9, so I should be able to do this. But
and 15.
I did push through 15. But
I think you will like this game more than 15 by the end. To be honest, I think.
Fran's in it though. Whew. That's enough to play.
Like, come on,
that's enough.
Hey, man, that race is in Final Fantasy 14 now, so you can be the what are they called? What's the race called?
Veras, something like that. Especially with the VRI. I think it is. No. Why
can I not remember this?
Yeah, I said I wasn't gonna play 14 until I bought the new expansion, then I could be, because when I saw it, I was like,
yeah, you're right.
I was like, I am going to play that race. That is it. I am done. I'm gonna be a samurai.
You can be her in Final Fantasy 14 now. I remember when it came out. Like,
how do dudes look? Dudes look good?
No, they're only women, I think.
Oh, really? Wait, what? Is that?
Yeah,
wait.
I think.
Oh, seriously?
In 14, yeah, it's only Vieira's a women. I could be wrong here. Wait, there's something about it.
How did they come out of eggs or? Are we gonna find this out right now?
Maybe, I don't know.
How did they?
Wait, Vieira 14 male. Wait, all Vieira that have appeared in the franchise have been female, although male Vieira do exist. Yeah, so no, you can't be a male Vieira. You can only be female Vieiras, which is fine, interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so.
Did you ever? Well, no, you won't have played. But did you ever play the literal sequel to Final Fantasy 12?
No. What?
There was a sequel on DS called Final Fantasy 12 Revenant Wings.
Oh, I do remember that name.
And it was pretty garbage.
Oh, why? Why was it garbage? Was it made by somebody else? Or?
I can't remember. I think so. Oh, they're called Think and Feel. Co-developed with Square Enix. It was kind of meant to be a bit like Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff like that, like bringing that back but using the 12 stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously it's completely different to 12 because it doesn't have 12's unique battle system, and you mostly play as Vaughn, and Vaughn sucks. So
wait, who's Vaughn again? Vaughn is the main guy. The orphan boy in 12. Yeah, he's the reason why I didn't play when I was younger. When I saw him, and I remember them talking about how they changed the character. He was supposed to be Bosch. Supposed to be Bosch, the older dude.
Yeah. And they changed it because young boys.
It's boys. Yeah, boys want to play a younger boy.
Like the whole Nier issue all over again. Like, why did they do it in Japan? Well, I guess we can answer that question in.
Wait.
By just saying
Nier?
Japan.
They changed Nier? In what, the original Nier or not?
Yeah, the original Nier.
Okay.
Wait.
I don't know.
You know about this, right?
No,
I thought we just okay, so in the original Nier,
mm-hmm.
the one on PS3,
yeah.
Nier has two versions, like a Western version and a Japanese version. And in the Western version, it's like a burly male character with like leather straps all over him and shit. And then in Japan, he's like a little anime boy as the main character instead. And they're like tangentially related. I can't remember how. Wow, I'm not doing a very good episode at remembering things today.
Really?
Yes. So they are two different things, and you can sort of Google it, and you'll notice that they're two different characters entirely. Yeah, they're not even just like models. They're two different characters. But the remake is only going to have the Western. I think the. Wait, no. I can't remember which one the remake is going to have, but both versions are going to have the same character this time, not two different versions.
The anime boy looks cool, though. That's so weird.
He does. I mean, yeah, so the Western one was called Near Gestalt, and then the Japanese one was called Near Replicant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, interesting. Like, you know, Japan, just like anime boys, I guess. It makes sense. Usually, like, big, burly guys are tanks in Japanese, so they tend not to be main characters because tanks aren't main characters. You gotta have the pretty roguelike warrior main boy.
I kind of wonder what the stats is with what people play the most. And I don't mean just gamers. I mean just like the
you
random
mean just everybody
dude
plays
that walks in. The random dude that walks into GameStop. Like, would he grab someone off the cover if it's a dude or it's a girl, or if the dude is really burly?
Definitely, I think, like, you know, when I was working in a video game shop, like, 10, 11 years ago now.
Yeah.
It was a lot of based on the cover, right? We had games media, but, you know, your average punter is going to go into a store, pick up a game box. I remember I used to do, like, DS games, like, speaking of, like, Final Fantasy XII Remnant Wings, whatever it was called. I always like looking for those type of rare gem stuff. Like I did it with like that, and with the Final Fantasy VI. Was it 6? The GBA one, and then like 4, and on the 3DS remake, like the 3D remakes, and all sorts of like weird JRPGs that used to get on DS. And like I did not read anything about them. I just picked them up based on the fact that what was like I picked up Inazuma 11 because I just picked up the case and it was really cool looking, and it felt fun to, like, you know, walk in and just buy a game based on
play something.
What is that
random
presentation to you?
Yes, I missed that.
It's interesting.
I missed that, man.
Yeah, those days are gone. Long gone.
Those days are long. I mean, this game's stopped now. Like, yeah, they always go in there like, oh, you want to pre-order the new AAA title? Like, no,
maybe Steam Pages now is like the equivalent, because you do it quite frequently, right? You go digging.
Yes, I go fishing.
Go fishing.
fishing for something good, man.
Final Fantasy 12.
Final Fantasy 12. Yeah.
So do you reckon you're gonna finish it?
Yeah, I feel like I definitely have to try. I mean, like, cause you know, I'm invested. I do. You
just want to see Fran's booty to the end.
I beat. Yeah. I beat 7, 9. Is that all? I've only beat those 2 on this podcast.
I thought you beat 10. Oh, on this podcast.
On this podcast.
No, 15. You beat 15.
And I beat 15. I know there was one more. So I think I should do 12.
Don't do yourself a disservice.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to play something that's not as popular as, you know, everyone's stuff is. I want to go back and play 6, but like I don't know. I had to be in the mood for some old school stuff. Is 6 the one where you pick up the train and slam it on someone?
Yes.
Okay, I might have to play 6.
It's the one with Kefka. It's the best one. It's my favorite. It's awesome.
Okay.
But it is, you know, a Super Nintendo RPG. So
yeah, it's old school. Yeah,
you have to bear with it that little bit. I have it right here. I have the 2 boxes right here of the.
So many good RPGs on Super Nintendo. Oh wow, man, I love those box arts, man.
Got the Japanese boxes of Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger right here, always with me for inspiration.
Oh, it reminds me of Super Mario RPG. Oh my god, that game was great.
Also great. Yeah. So yeah, I think you'd enjoy 6. Like. Yeah. There are RPGs for the Super Nintendo, but the story of 6 and the way it carries itself is still like unrivaled in many ways to me. I haven't gone back. I think I played it, you know, when the like the mini classic came out, like the little Super Nintendo classic.
Yeah.
That's when I played it last, and that was what, 3-4 years ago now, maybe.
Classic.
Yeah. Good old classic.
What have you been playing, my friend?
Well, so
this guy.
Actually, like I've done a lot. I played a lot of different things, but
I'm looking.
I haven't played them.
Holy shit!
So I haven't played any extensively, but I've played a lot, like a varied amount for like a couple of hours each, not like in depth in any of them. But the main one I've been playing and the one I want to talk about is Part-Time UFO.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, did you see this?
No, I haven't. I'm going to look it up now.
Okay. So for anybody who doesn't know, a bit of content filler is that there was the Nintendo Partner Direct dropped late last week. It's the last one of the year, and it shows all the third-party teams and what they're doing. And, it's not a real Nintendo Direct. Supposedly, everybody gets a bit pissed because it's not, actually Nintendo. But it was actually pretty good, and there was a lot of announcements in there. Some of the stuff about, what was it? The Control Cloud version is coming out, or came out that day. And the big one being the Hyrule, the Calamity of Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, etc., etc. The demo for that came out, which I also did play, which I can talk about in a little bit as well. Mm-hmm. But the main one is there's a Switch version of Part-Time UFO, which originally was I don't know if it's this version or a previous version. It was a iOS and Android game made by HAL Laboratories. So the guys who make Kirby and what is the other? Oh, Box Boy and all those games, those lovely little games. The original makers of Smash Brothers. Sakurai's studio, Iwata-san's studio, and one of their most recent games is Part-Time UFO, which is possibly one of the best little games I played this year. It is freaking adorable. So if you haven't played Box Boy either, Box Boy was like a small title released digitally on originally the 3DS eShop, like back in the day. And then since then it's gained quite a few different sequels because it was popular, and it was about this little box with eyes that did puzzles or whatever. Well, their new game is this tiny little UFO, which is like a UFO catcher, like, a crane game, where you pick toys up out of like a glass thing. Well, in Japan, anybody who's been to Japan will know that crane games, like UFO catchers, are freaking mega popular.
Yeah.
Like super, super popular. So it's no surprise, a little game made by a Japanese developer about basically the Claw from Toy Story.
Yeah.
But he's this adorable little UFO. And the idea is crash lands on Earth and he gets a little Japanese apartment, which by the way is fucking adorable. And then he goes and he does part-time jobs lifting stuff and stacking them on top of each other for people to earn money so he can buy little cute outfits and then just live in his little Japanese apartment. And it is just wonderful.
You could change your little guy too, I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's truly, anybody who's listening to this now who can, just go look at some gameplay and listen to the music for it. The music reminds me a lot of Loco Roco back on the PSP.
Ooh,
very similar, like Vocaloid styling. Just adorable. But the gameplay is just lovely. It feels really good. Like, obviously you're just picking stuff up and like dropping them, but it's all physics based. So when you pick them up, the weight of the object will like pull and you'll have to really fight against it to lift it up. And then when you stack things on top of each other, they'll misalign and you'll have to try and like slowly put them down. And it feels like, typically like a Nintendo game, feels really tight. Controls are really simple, but really good. And you just go around doing odd jobs, and every mission is like you're either on a farm and you have to pick up some cows and stack them into the back of a van, or you have to go to like a toy store and then like fill a shopping cart full of toys for kids, and you're trying to balance them on top of each other. So each mission generally has an objective that you have to do within a time limit, whether it's like stack 5 statues, etc., etc. But in each mission, there are 3 different alternative goals as well, typical like mission mini games style stuff. And then essentially you just try and get 3 medals for each stage. You complete it, you get money, you buy costumes, you go on to the next stage, do it. There's a couple of other little games in there as well, like one that's like an infinitive stacking game where you just try and stack as many as you can, balancing them for as long as possible. It's tight. It's literally, I think, only $10. It is just delightful, and I'm loving the heck out of it. I just pick it up and I play it in bed. I woke up Saturday morning with a hangover. I just ordered a McDonald's breakfast.
Me too.
Picked up my Switch, and I had the most egregiously lazy and just delightful morning where I was playing this game and eating a burger feeling disgusting. It was awesome. But if you got a Switch and you want something that will make you feel something in this year.
Oh, I know.
If you want something, I think I'm gonna recommend this game to George because it might cheer our old pal up considering this type of week.
It might be too stressful having to have a part-time job.
Do you know what's so great about it? And what I really like about it is when you stack something and it falls over, you're not that bothered. You're not bothered because you get to pick them all up again and stack them again. And it's fun.
But there's a time limit.
So, yeah, but the time limit is not stressful because you can go over the time. The time limit is there only for you to try and get the bonus.
Yeah.
So the game is very generous. It doesn't give you 120 seconds. It's like, you must finish it right now. Otherwise you're fucked. It doesn't do that kind of thing. It, it just encourages you to be a bit faster and try and stack things. And the pixel art is delightful. The UFO, it moves and feels great and has all of these adorable little costumes. I have he looks like a little robot when I play as him. It's great. I'm really enjoying it. And he has this adorable little, every time you finish a mission, it goes back to the main title and he's just in this little, if you ever wanted to know what a Japanese apartment looks like, just look at his little apartment. He's in this cute little Japanese apartment and he's just reading the newspaper and just having a whale of a time. And you can see, in the background, if you know Japan, it's Tokyo Tower in the background. So you can kind of gauge that where his apartment is. But it's such a surprise because I didn't get a chance to play the iOS or the Android version of the game originally. I was kind of interested, but I didn't play it. And it was, portrait. Now with the Switch version, it's completely landscape, so you can see the whole stage, and they've made it a bit bigger and stuff now. And it's just it's a delight. This is a type of game that I people who listen to me a lot know that I would love, and the type of game that inspires me to make more games because it's the type of game I would want to make, actively would want to make, this just really good feeling, positive, good looking adventure with this adorable little character. Yeah. So I would highly recommend this game. And it's literally $9 or $10. You should dive in and be a part-time UFO if you haven't already. So that came out.
Mm-hmm.
It was dropped like it was hot. And alongside it was the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity.
Yeah, I was looking at this. This looks dope. It's been 6 years since the last one. This looks completely different. This looks like an action game, man.
Well, it is. It's a Musou game. It is basically a Dynasty Warriors game, same as the original Hyrule Warriors. But it is, of course, a prequel to Breath of the Wild, which is the amazing part of this, right? So the big thing is that it tells the story of the setup of Breath of the Wild, which is when Ganon came back and they went to war and Link got put in the Stasis and how they, all of the champions of Hyrule, how they came together. And supposedly it tells that story. It is exactly as you'd expect. If you played Hyrule Warriors, it's the same game. But it does feel quite nice because it is in the Breath of the Wild engine, I think. It definitely has all of the assets. So it is nice because you are returning to Breath of the Wild's Hyrule. It's a little chop and changed. It's not the full experience. You can't just run around the giant open world. It's quite segmented, but it is the same environment and it feels nice to be back in that area again. Yes, albeit very, very strange because you're destroying 1,000 goblins every 10 seconds and just completely annihilating them with just Link having infinite weapons to his disposal.
That don't break.
So,
which is great.
That don't break. So the whole of the demo is the first chapter of the game. I only played the first mission. And then I switched back to part-time UFO pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's as you'd expect. It's really good fun if you like those types of games. I don't think it's going to sell you if you already don't like Musou games. You're not going to be that impressed. I will admit, Impa, the young Impa, being a character, she is really fun to play. Like, her magic is very different, and you can do like all these weird setups, and you can like drop different clones of yourself to do stuff. I couldn't quite figure out exactly what to do, but like you could just mash the buttons and she'd do really cool shit.
Yeah.
Like it felt really good. But typically, annoyingly, like most Musou games, the frame rate is garbage. It's garbage. It's like 20 if you're lucky. And if you play in handheld mode, it's even worse. So don't expect it to be a technical marvel. Of course, it's on Nintendo Switch. It doesn't run very well. But if you liked Hyrule Warriors, or if you were interested in the Musou games and you want to go back to the Breath of the Wild Hyrule, then I think you have some fun. And the save game data from this carries over into the next game, into the actual full release. So you get it.
Okay.
So if you complete the first chapter, you can then just start the second chapter when you buy the full game when it comes out, which is pretty good.
Yeah,
it's nice. I've
never been a Dynasty Warriors type of dude, so like.
So I was just gonna ask you, did you ever get into the Dynasty Warriors games?
Never got into it. Like I would play a little bit. I remember buying a couple from GameStop, and I was just like, "This is not for me." It's just like, yeah.
I think a big problem for like the Musou games originally was the fact that, and this is by no means a bad thing. It's just what it was that it was always wrapped in that. The Chinese mythology of the three kingdoms, and that never changed, right? Lu Bu and all of those guys, which kind of is maybe not the most well-told story in the West at all, even though, it's one of China's most famous cultural significance, right? The romance of the three kingdoms and all that kind of stuff. But then once they started doing more spin-offs, like I bought the Fire Emblem one, and I played that, Fire Emblem Warriors, and I had a good time with that. Even though it was typically just a Musou game, and they did Hyrule Warriors. Now more people are really getting. There was a Berserk one that was really fun. I actually really did enjoy that one. And there's been all sorts. The One Piece series has a Musou spin-off series. All sorts of different anime series now have like Musou spin-offs made by Koei Tecmo. It is kind of interesting that more and more people are starting to like this kind of style of game. Even though they are just basically interchangeable skins.
Yeah.
I think, they just let Omega Force just do whatever, right? It's weird. Now I'm thinking back. I've played a lot of Musou games, like the Attack on Titan one.
It was one?
That was good. That was a really good one because the movement in that game was like top tier because it was like, it felt like Attack on Titan. Like the firing your little what do they call them? Like the electric wires out.
The air gear or something gear.
Something like that, yeah. And then it would literally like fly you towards a building, and then you could launch off it into the air, and it was really good. And the Titans are massive, and that was really fun. And then you had the Dragon Quest Heroes game, which at the time I remember when it was like early PS4, I think. And like the graphics, everyone was like, whoa, that looks sick. Like it looked really good, like really tasty. And then that had a sequel as well. So there's a lot of different, you've got the One Piece, I think, even like
One Piece.
I think, did the Atelier series have one as well? I think it's just like Omega Force, like smashing them out every year, just changing out. I think there was like Gundam ones as well, like Gundam Musou games. There is obviously
they've done everything. Yeah, it's like Platinum Games over there.
Samurai Warriors, which was based on the Sengoku Musou or Sengoku Basara stuff. There's a lot of them. Wow. And the Fist of the North Star one as well, Hokuto no Ken. Like there was the one on PS3. And that was really fun. So actually, there's been a fair amount of Musou games these days that are like actually pretty good. So when I think back now, because I blanked these from my mind, they're all like the same. But when I think back to the Attack on Titan one, that was a really quite special one because I would much prefer to play that than Hyrule Warriors.
Yeah.
Because it changes it up. Like Hyrule Warriors, there's no special thing to it other than, attacking with a sword. Or, well, in Link's case. Maybe some of the... I'm interested to see how some of the champions play.
You saw the trailer? Like, you do different things, it seems. It seems like that's all they showed.
There's a lot of cutscenes, it seems. Like, I think it's really heavily story-focused. Like, the setup for it is that there's, like, this mini guardian, like, this pet guardian that goes back in time to when the calamity happens. I think is going to warn them of what happens afterwards. And Impa's going to figure it out or something. There's a lot of focus on Impa and this like tiny little baby guardian, which is like a friendly guardian.
And it's still going to happen anyways.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
And obviously Persona 5 had one recently, right? Persona 5 Scramble, the Phantom Strikers for Nintendo Switch and PS4.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah. And which is not getting a Western localization, it seems. That had one as well. So it's crazy. Like these guys are just pumping this shit out, man. It's fair play to them. And they're not exactly like bad. They're just what they are.
Legend of Korra. That's that quality I'm thinking about. Legend of Korra by Platinum Games. I can't believe I beat that game, but yeah.
That is not... I don't think that's a very good example considering how poorly reviewed that thing was. No,
that was a game right there.
I think fair play to these guys. They're kind of doing the... what are they doing? Studios that take other IPs, they don't really have their own. They take other IPs and then they faithfully recreate them, like without messing with them too much, and then just present you like a nice dessert, like a chocolate cheesecake that you know what to expect going into it. It's not going to be the best thing in the world, but you're going to like find some enjoyment in it, and it's not that special, but you just eat it anyway, and it's fine. So I feel like the Age of Calamity is probably going to be the same towards the end of the full version.
Yeah. Hopefully not. I want to... Scourgebringer does look pretty cool, but I really want to know how you like Ikenfell. How much have you played of it first?
Not that much, I'll be honest. Not that much. But
like an hour?
More, probably about 2 or 3.
Okay.
I've definitely played more of it than I have of Scourgebringer, which is the other game I played this week, which is the new sort of roguelike on Xbox, also on Xbox Game Pass alongside Ikenfell. Ikenfell's really putting me off because I don't know how to pronounce it. Like, I keep doing the Japanese Ikenfell, like, at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know
like
either.
a Japanese word.
Yeah, some people pronounce it differently too.
Ikenfell. But both are on Xbox Game Pass. And after you talking about it last week, I immediately downloaded it, Ikenfell, and gave it a go. And I'm about 3 hours in now.
Okay.
And I think it's very good.
Are you joshing me right now, Liam?
No, I think it's very good, but I don't know how long that's going to last with me. And do you know what it is?
What?
It's the battle system.
Oh no!
Only because, right? So, for those who don't know, it's like it kind of reminds me of Pokemon, like a little bit, like It like if you think back to like GBA Pokemon games where you had the square, just the square area, and you walk around the area, then you go to the next square, and you walk around the area, kind of like original Zelda, and it's very poppy, pixel-arty, lovely. I think the game is lovely, and the music is amazing, and the battle system is really really good, but it's very very slow. Like battles with enemies.
Yeah.
Take a lot longer than I want them to. So if you think for the way battles work in Ikenfell is that you're on this like grid and it's kind of slanted to the side. So it's almost isometric. And the idea is that you move kind of similar to, Mega Man Battle Network, as you were saying, and you move on this grid towards your enemies almost like chess pieces, and then each, similar to games like Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem, etc., you have magic spells that you can do, and they move a certain amount of spaces and that kind of thing. But what makes Ikenfell interesting is like each spell has like a certain range. Some go across all of the tiles. Some you have to aim like two tiles later. But then when you attack, it's like Paper Mario, where when the attack is about to land, your timing of a button press makes the attack do more damage. So it can be like one. It can be like
significantly more damage.
Significantly more damage.
You can't play the game without doing it. let's just put it that way.
so you are always engaged in that regard.
Yes.
And then and what is super unique about Ikenfell, and it's the same with defending. So when an enemy attacks you, you have to also then time the press to deal less damage to yourself. So the better the timing, the less damage you take, and that is really cool. But what is super cool about Ikenfell in that regard is that each animation for an attack and an enemy attack is different. It's not like just a generic fireball that comes across and you can get used to the timing. Each enemy has a different timed attack that depends on the distance of how far they are away from you, and also how the attack of the animation is. So you have to be on your guard to get the timing, because if one enemy attacks, it might take 2 seconds to reach you, and then the next enemy attacks and it might take 1 second. Like, it's different. It's not just generic fireball flies across and you're like playing tennis or something like that. So that's really smart. The problem is, like, if you think back to like JRPGs or games similar to this, when you play those, because there's a lot of enemies in Ikenfell, isn't there? There's like, even just getting to the school in the beginning, like, each square, it takes a long time. There's like maybe 2 or 3 enemies in most squares, like most square areas where you go. Is that each battle is like, you start opposite sides of the grid, and then you have to like, first of all, you have to move really close to them to start doing it. And that takes at least almost 2 turns. And then once you start doing it, depending on how good your button timing is, battles can take a lot longer. And it doesn't, because the enemies are so shit, right? It feels like I'm just like, it feels a bit just drawn out. Like, why are battles so early on taking like 5 minutes, right? That kind of thing.
I think it's because you haven't learned like the game yet. Okay. But it's a fair criticism though. It's
the very
reason
beginning
why
of the game.
Some people didn't like it. It's very tiring to some.
It is.
Like if you're not on top of it, if you're not getting greats, which is when you press it right, you're not doing the max amount of damage, and the battles will take longer. And if you're getting hit all the time and you're always missing your defensive buttons, then you're gonna get hit and you're gonna do a potion. Like, if you're not used to it, it's going to take longer.
It is kind of like the way the game introduced the battle system is really good, but then there is this moment between then and the next big story beat when you get like trying to get into the school. There's like 20 or so battles like in there if you try and attack every enemy, which is so different to most games, like in terms of their curvature. Like, it'll give you maybe 1 or 2 battles to try and experiment and give some stuff. There's a lot of battles, and there's like 2 boss battles almost, like the one with the 2 wizards who show up, the one with the candle lantern that merges, and then the one in the basement of the tavern. All of this before like you've got even to like some of the main bits about the story.
This is so interesting. Like, I didn't even think about them as like boss battles. So I think I would have loved to see you play to understand, like, I guess, like where that's coming from. But I can understand though. I can definitely understand, because I can. That's like the thing that I see. Like, some people are not gonna like this because it's gonna, like, you have to focus. This is not like FF12, right? Like, you can't just like
absolutely
set up gambits and like, all right, time to chill, and press fast forward. Like, this game, like, you have to pay attention, or you will be punished by time, or die later on.
It's definitely not a criticism of the battle system itself, which I think is really good. I think it's just all of the stuff around it. Like, when you sneak up on enemies, if it allowed you to automatically be closer to them and like allow you an advantage attack in the beginning, instead of having to set up, move forward. Like, I think it's the moving forward in the beginning that is also quite slow.
You may not want that. There are protection spells. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do. I guess I don't know if this is really spoiled. There's people that you get that have long range spells that you want to be distant for.
Okay.
There's so many, like, you don't want to be close all the time. You know what I'm saying?
It's an interesting way to start the game then. Like, obviously they introduced this really interesting battle system. I actually really like it, but then they follow it up by the almost immediate next section of the game being really slow, full of enemies, and like you're like,
yeah,
okay, this battle system is quite slow.
Because once you get into the school, it's different. It's a bit different. Because the characters come in and you're like, oh shit, like there's a lot of moments like you haven't hit yet.
Yeah.
And so right now you're on this like very depressing spiral right now in the beginning of the story. And you meet the girl and she's just like, oh, like. But
I think I understand what you're saying last week. Like, I do really like the writing, and like some of the introductions to characters have been great.
You have no idea.
Oh, awesome. I'm excited. God. I'm excited. Okay. Okay. So
there's going to be a moment where you're going to be like, oh shit.
Ultimately, very positive so far. Apart from that. So it's interesting because it's the first game that I started doing this thing recently. And I've done it for Part-Time UFO, this, and a couple of other games that were in the back catalog. But I started with Ikenfell, which was a friend of mine who's a game designer, a very prominent, successful game designer. He showed me this thing. Like, he was like, oh, have I shown you this before? And I was like, oh, no, I don't know what it is. And he just handed me like a notebook. And it was just full for like a year, like a whole year's worth of games he's played. And then just bullet point notes on every game he's played. Like, that's good. But it wasn't like a review. They were just bullet points of like, the HP of this enemy was really smart because X and X, right? It wasn't like, oh, I really like this or this.
The Bible.
It was like technical stuff that was like, oh, they, in this battle system, they do this. And it was like reading some of his notes. Obviously, he's an incredibly smart guy. But the things he noticed and like clarifying for myself, like trying to flip through and find games that I've played and to see how if it matches up with how I feel was super interesting. But it was such a good practice. And obviously seeing the games he's designed in the past and how successful they've been, like the fact that he's been doing that for a year shows like sort of the thought process of how you can do that kind of stuff. So it's something I wanted to start doing myself. So I recently bought like a pretty expensive notebook, like kind of setup so I could carry it with me all the time and, try to stick with it. And I started with Ikenfell. Ikenfell was the first game I started doing this thing about. And I wrote like a whole, like the notebook's not that big, but I wrote like a whole page of bullet points about stuff that I noticed that I really liked. Like, for example, the game has 3 different character sprites for every character. It has the world sprite, which is like 32 by 32. Then it has, the main character narrative sprite for when text dialogue's happening, which is like a huge 128 by 128 sprite. And then it has a battle sprite as well, which is not a copy of the world sprite, which is then a 64 by 64-bit version of that character as well. And I found that super interesting. I don't know many games where you would have 3 different character sprites for the different situations, and I thought that was super interesting. And there was a lot of little things about Ikenfell I really liked. One of the big things about Ikenfell as well is that every little thing, whether if you hit like a fence or you like fall over or something, there is an audio effect that goes with it that adds to that polish. That is really nice, which kind of frustrates me that currently the battle music is the same every time, and I hate the do 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 like at the beginning of a fight, like that kind of little guitar bit.
Yeah.
Because everything else is like top notch on top. And some of the ways they manipulate sprites to do stuff, like when she nods, like in the world sprite, like it's basically just the front half of her face just wiggles up and down, and it's awesome. And it works. And it's really cheap and easy. And it's that kind of stuff that I've been writing down and making notes of. I feel like Ikenfell was a really good game to start with for that, considering I think it was mostly made by one person. So, those kind of corners you have to cut when you're making a game by yourself. But yeah, since then I've started doing it about, Part-Time UFO and other games like that. And it's been really cathartic to be like, because there's a lot of times when designing games where you're like, oh, like you need something like a HP bar or something, and you're like, okay, and we need to, represent health to the player. Like, what is a smart way of doing that? And you're kind of racking your brain like of every game you've ever played and been like, oh, that game had a really nice visual way of showing like health in this game. Like, oh, how did it look? So having hopefully by the end of like next year or something in the future, this Bible of my own that has all of these different breakdowns. But I tend not to write like whether I like it or not. I'm just like something negative, something positive about the game design, or something that I would change personally. Of like for example, the bringing up of the moving forward and speeding up the battle system. I felt like that was one of the things I wrote down immediately. So that's been helpful. I am looking forward to playing more of it for sure. I hope it does.
I hope so. It's okay if you don't. Like, I understand it's tiring, but like if you at least get to some of the parts, and then you can hear the different music. It does comes up later.
It does remind me of just an old GBA game, and that's why I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yeah.
So have you finished it, right?
Oh, I did. How swallowed it whole, Liam. I couldn't stop playing that game.
How long do you think it is?
Xbox doesn't show like the time, does it? We could just do Ikenfell.
How long to beat? Maybe.
How long to beat? How long to beat?
15 to 20 hours.
Okay.
All right. Does that sound about right? You reckon?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's pretty good. I feel like that's doable for, my terrible short attention span.
Yeah, like it's not like when me and my friend Patrick were playing through Persona 4 together. Now that's a game right there. That's a game right there. Okay.
That's a beast.
Anything under 80 is fine with me.
Anything under 15 generally is great for me.
80 hours. I can't that was the last time I spent that long on a game. And I was like, no, I don't think I can do it.
Okay. Well, hopefully I'll stick through with it. And then if it majorly doesn't speed up a little bit, then I don't know, maybe.
You're gonna totally give up, just like you gave up
on the cusp.
That other game, Xeno. Do you know that one of the listeners that were in the Q&A said I beat the game based on Liam's recommendation, and now he won't beat the game so he can talk about it on the podcast. He said that after you left that day, and I was like, I am going to guilt trip him. I'm going to guilt trip him.
Right, so now you're airing the dirty laundry out and guilt tripping me on air. I appreciate it.
Everybody.
Oh, for fuck's sakes! Look, the presidential election is in 3 days.
Don't switch.
I can finish it before the presidential election. I can't.
There's no way.
Look, there's a lot of games coming out in the next 2 weeks. It's freaking next gen. Like, by the time we're recording the next episode of the show, I will probably have a next gen console. So let's, cut me some slack. There's a lot of games coming out.
Demon Souls looks great. That new trailer that came out, oh my God.
Based on that trailer and based on the reviews of the PS5 controller, yes, I've changed my mind, and I'm also probably going to buy a PS5.
Oh my God. Yeah, you might have to wait a little bit. Can you play PS4 on PS5? Is that a thing? Is it like Xbox?
Not to the extent. Like, Xbox came out with a news story this week or something where every single Xbox game ever, Xbox original, Xbox 360,
which
Xbox
is amazing.
One, minus Kinect games, I think. After something like 500,000 hours of testing, which is insane, you'll be able to play every single one, which is amazing and fantastic. And Game Pass on top of that is amazing. But I will admit, seeing Demon Souls is like, okay, that is next gen. That is the next gen experience, right? Like, I do
so good. It looks so good. I was like, I the first trailer was like whatever, but when I saw the trailer like a couple of days ago, like, oh my God, because it's not made by From Software. That's why it looks like that.
No, it's made by Blue Point Games, the guys who did the Shadow of the Colossus one.
It looks good.
So, do you not feel, and this is my only worry,
Yeah.
My only worry is that with the game looking so good and almost so realistic that when he, in the trailer, or he or she, was stabbing the spider boss and just like hacking and slashing, it looks so odd.
Yeah, it did.
Because
the one with the spit in the fire, right? Yeah.
It's so video gamey, yet the game looks so real that the two almost were like uncanny valley didn't match.
Yeah.
It was a little off-putting. And I was like,
did
they really want to show this?
Pincer things, right? When he'll slant.
Yeah, and he's just basically whacking it, and then nothing's happening, right? Like a little bit of blood. Like it was so video game-y.
It was weird for them to show that, you know?
It was a strange choice.
It was a strange, like that was like the only strange thing. Because I was looking, maybe this game is not so good. And then all of a sudden it spit fire. And you like went all the way back, and it almost hit him. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of cool." Like automatically, you already forgot about the little weird animation that was there before. Yeah, kill him with the good, gorgeous graphics, I guess. Distract them from everything else. But when you see the combat, it seems more looser, and you interact more with like the enemies, which is great. I would like to see like if you have different weapons and different weapon animations to go with it, because that's like a staple for I don't know if you ever seen like hackers inside of Dark Souls that they can make their own bosses and stuff, but it's the most incredible thing I've seen in a video game in a long time, and I hope I want to be able to do shit like that. In some type of Dark Souls eventually, or Demon Souls or whatever. But I'll wait for my friend, because my friend has been waiting for it. I'll wait for him to play it. It's like, oh yeah, it's amazing. It's blah, blah, blah. And then I'll see. Maybe it'll be a good Christmas gift for myself or something.
I'm wondering if I'm just like on the day. I think it's the day I go to Hokkaido. So maybe I'm just gonna go to like Yodobashi or a big camera in Hokkaido and camp out early in the morning and try my best to get a PS5.
I do want that controller though, because my Xbox 360, my original Xbox 360 broke.
Yeah.
They don't sell them anymore, the controllers. So I have this off-brand one that I've been using for my games. And it does not feel as good, man. Let me tell you. And at this point, if it's I have a Xbox One for my Oculus, but something is wrong with the analog stick.
Oh,
it drifts, and in order to fix it, I have to open it up, and I am not opening up some fucking controller. I'm just not.
I use this Xbox One controller for my PC. And I still don't know if I like or don't like this controller, because I certainly don't like the matte black slippy finish that is all over this thing.
Yeah.
But then when I pick up an old Xbox 360 controller, I think I have one around it somewhere. I don't know whether it does, but I don't know whether it feels good now. You know what I mean? Like compared to the DualShock 4 or the Switch Pro controller. Like I feel like the weight and the size of controllers have gotten better, and that's possibly why I don't like the Xbox One controller, because it is so light. There's nothing in it. Like you can, it's so plasticky. And one thing I'm excited about with the next gen controllers, I mean, even though the Xbox Series X controller is pretty much just a better version of this, is that they have like all the grooves and the grips, like tactile feel to them.
Yeah.
So they feel not like this crappy glossy matte finish, which just is just sweaty and slippy.
And because you're paying $60 for that, you know.
I know.
And I don't like it.
I don't think so.
I don't like it because like that's why I like $12 for an Xbox 360 controller. That's where I'm at, right? Because I enjoy the feel of an Xbox 360 controller, because that's what I grew up with. Back when I used to play, like that's all I used to play. But I think $60 for the DualShock 4 or whatever 5, wherever we're at now, that might the way how like controller's looking. Maybe not white though. Maybe not white.
Oh, the DualSense. So the PS5. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The DualSense. Sorry, the PS5 one. The DualSense. That might be actually work because you've seen the molders in there, right? And how they can.
So that's the thing, though. I don't know if they work for anything other than PS5 games, right?
PS5, yeah.
So unless you have a PS5, although I've seen some because they're on sale now in America, those controllers.
What?
Like yesterday, they started being shipped, I think, and you can buy some. And I saw some people tweeting that they were playing it on PC, and it feels good, but it doesn't have the motor functionality, of course, because that's just for PS5 games right now.
I think they can program it into PC.
So in the future, I think they obviously could if it's there, but unless you're specifically releasing a PS5 version of the game, I don't know why you would, because then you're having to basically find people who are using PS5 controllers. It's just there for an additional feature. But yes, I will admit I have been swayed by a lot of the videos coming out by people who are playing it, and those adaptive triggers look freaking sweet.
They do.
Like the fight back on them.
It's like a step further into like why you play on like with a controller, right? Like there's something about having a mouse and keyboard that feels good for certain games, but I love playing a controller for controller type of games, and just to have that extra like. It's like playing VR, right? You have that extra,
immersion.
3D, that adds to the game. This, having that feedback of the vibrations, every time you walk on certain surfaces, and maybe there's a moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think of it like, having played a lot of F1 and racing games recently, like getting into that, like that, as much as I really want a wheel, like I really want to invest in a wheel. The idea of like racing and the trigger, like when you go over curbs or roads that are bumpy and stuff, like fighting back against you, and you're trying to like steer the car because you're trying to really push it. And then when you can feel what the different surfaces of the road are based on the touch of your hands, makes it like, oh, that is pretty next gen. I am excited to feel that.
I'm scared of how long they last, but. Because that seems like a little...
I did see like a tear down video today, and the actual like whatever it's called, not the spring, but the thing that rotates that has the teeth is made of plastic. So I don't know if you pull down on the triggers too hard and you sort of shear away some of the plastic, and over time it wears down, so maybe the teeth don't grab as easy. I can imagine that happening quite easily.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully it doesn't.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, unfortunately. But they do look pretty sweet, and everybody who's used one so far is saying pretty raving reviews about it in comparison to the Xbox Series X controller, which is just a standard controller. So so I have been swayed. I will maybe try and get it a PS5. I don't think I'm going to be able to get hold of one. The stock is completely sold out. So, and that's probably good for my wallet because.
I'll live vicariously through you.
Shouldn't buy 2 next-gen consoles. That's a really dumb idea, but I'm a dumb person.
That's a lot.
I can play Ikenfell on my PC for free.
Yes. We keep saying free. We keep saying free.
Well, George pays for our Game Pass. Well, he pays for mine. You use your own.
I do use my own, yeah.
I don't know why. We have one for the podcast.
What do you mean? We can't just like I can't just play what I want all the time, right? We can't both play.
Me and George have never encountered problems with it. You
guys don't play enough. George definitely doesn't play enough games. So
that's true. We're also on 2 different time zones, but yes, you're right. That's true. That's true. That is very true. That's pretty much it for this week, unless you have some additional things that you've been up to this week. You've been a busy boy, so.
I've been a busy boy. Just been working.
Because Daddy is not here,
Ooh.
and we've already talked about the PS5 controller.
Ooh.
We're just gonna go right ahead and skip that news because we don't care. We're up in here. We're breaking the rules. Like, Georgia has a bunch of stuff down. There was like Watch Dogs Legion was released, did all right. Amnesia Rebirth released, did all right. Ghost Runner, Matt, one of your interests.
Yeah.
Reviewed
I'll
nicely
play it next week. Yeah.
Something about Vampire the Masquerade is getting turned into a battle royale. Interesting. Don't know what that's all about.
What?
No idea. No idea. Mostly the PS5 stuff, and of course Cyberpunk 2077 delayed until December. really shitty crunch practices, of course. And everybody got sent a Xbox Series X giant refrigerator after all of the memes. Fair fucking play to Microsoft on that one. Sending Snoop Dogg a real-sized version of an Xbox Series X that is a fridge. Pretty smart marketing, maybe. Don't know how expensive those things are to make, though. Seems pretty expensive.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they got the money.
I'm pretty sure they do. Isn't Xbox something like 10% of all of Microsoft's entire revenue? Like, that's just how much money Microsoft have.
Jesus.
And they've bought all of these studios and everything, and it's literally only accounts for like 10% of their entire assets or something stupid like that.
I mean.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, man.
I'm saying, like, they're Windows, right? Like, Microsoft is huge.
Oh, it's everything else. Yeah,
it's massive.
Just everything else.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's just everything else.
Yeah.
But speaking of everybody else, we're going to jump into some questions. We've got quite a few this week because obviously we have the time. Skipping all that fancy news and stuff. So we're going to jump right into questions this week. If you would like to send us some questions or comments or pictures of your dogs, you can at dadandsonspodcast@gmail.com. You could also alternatively, and you should, because if you pledge $15 a month, you can join a Q&A where you can slate me personally for not finishing Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yes.
And you can, gang up on us to get George to watch more anime. If you would like to do that, you can head over to Patreon.com/dadandsons and you can join us for either $5, $10, $15 each one. You can have QAs, you can join our wonderful Discord. It's a great bloody time, and we all have a great time. So don't worry about it. You're welcome. So let's jump into these questions. First, we have Haj the Man, maybe. If you guys could adapt any single book or play into a video game, what would you want adapted, and what genre of the game would it be?
Medea.
What's Medea? What's that?
You don't know what Medea is.
Wait, a media or Medea?
Medea. I want to see your reaction.
Wait, what?
You never heard of Medea?
Wait, what is this?
Tyler Perry's Medea? You never heard of Tyler Perry's Medea?
No. How do you spell it?
M-A-D-E-A.
Oh, okay, Medea. Oh.
Where Tyler Perry dresses up as a woman and says over here and all that, classic stereotypical black,
This is a movie though. This isn't a book.
It's movie and play.
Oh, it's a play.
They started off as plays and they moved to movies and that became a thing, and for some reason it's never stopped. I have no idea why.
Is this how Taylor Perry made like $1 billion?
Yes.
Wow. How is that man worth $1 billion? Wow.
I don't know.
Okay, so what genre would this be?
It would have to be a point and click adventure. And you play as Medea. They could be finding Medea, or you could play as Medea as she like travels around and tries to find Tyrone. I don't know. Like, I didn't think this through.
I think you did. I think maybe you've spent many a nights dreaming of the Medea in the video game.
See all those game videos I sent you, it was just trying to get to.
Oh, you're trying to get me to make the Medea game. Yeah. Okay, right, okay. So this is what you do when your PS4 gets stolen. You just sit around imagining the games you're playing, and one of them is this.
Thank God it has not been stolen again.
It's only breaking now. I like how you checked just to make sure that you still had it.
Yeah, I had to turn around. I was like, wait a minute. It's still there, right? Oh my God. What about you?
I don't know. I guess it would be pretty easy to convert like a lot of the fantasy novels I like. Like you could have the Stormlight Archives, but that would be quite the undertaking considering how massive that series is. And what would you do? I feel like The Name in the Wind, or The Name of the Wind, of the Wind.
Yeah, by Peter.
That would be really good. Patrick Rothfuss.
Patrick.
Because imagine imagine a game where you are playing, you know, COVID.
Oh God.
What's his name? Kvothe. Sorry to everybody who's a big fan of that book. I love it too. But imagine, right, for anybody who doesn't know about the story, I won't spoil it, but like he's basically recounting the history of his life. But imagine if you had the choice to choose which parts of the story you tell, and then you go flashback into those scenes and you play different moments of his life, which means you could play like when he's at the school, and you could play like a point and click adventure game. Then you could play when he like fights people, and then you'd have like an action combat game, and you could have all different genres inside of this one video game. So you'd have almost like a visual novel overlay where he's telling his story and recounting the stuff.
Yeah.
And then when he's in the school and he's growing up and he's learning all these things, and when he's like sneaking out to go to the taverns across the river and, you know, meeting all these different people, you could have different genres, and the game's skipping forward and you're doing different parts, and maybe you're doing the alchemy bit he's also doing, and you have to do all these different types of gameplay stylings on top of the typical fantasy fighting and stuff that you could do. I feel like that could be interesting. That could be a pretty interesting game. Very difficult, because obviously you have to make a huge amount of different systems on top of that. So that could be interesting. Do books translate well into video games?
I mean, The Witcher.
Way to fucking put me in my place.
I mean, that's like the only one, right? Other than like the Metro series, right?
Yes, that's true. The Metro series, right? Or like, how is Elden Ring going to pan out with like George R.R. Martin writing supposedly a chunk of it, or the world setup?
Sekiro was pretty fun.
Pretty fun? You mean one of the best games ever made, in my opinion.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. So I'm hoping that this one is a good like step into a right direction. Yeah.
I did boot up Bloodborne on Halloween for like an hour and had a nice good old kick around at Bloodborne again.
My friend is playing it now, and it's taken him years to beat that game. It's taken him years to beat that game, and I still haven't beat it. Yeah. From
Software are better when they make spin-offs. Like, I'm just throwing out.
Yes, I believe that too.
Bloodborne, Sekiro, what games? Right? Come on, just come on.
When you put people in a hole, what do you expect? That's probably why they didn't want to do the fucking Demon Souls. They're like, nah, I'm good. We're gonna do this.
We'll let you guys do that. We'll do Elden Ring.
We'll do something else. Like we're kind of tired of being Dark Souls people. Yeah.
Does this speak to how illiterate we are and how much we don't read because we can't really think of a good book to video game adaptation? I read, just not that much.
I mean, I could go back and get like the 10th Justice and all these thriller novels I used to read when I was younger. Those were fun. I always want The Painted Man or The Warded Man, depending on which book cover you got. Is also one of my favorites to be turned in, and it's basically like it could totally be an action adventure. Like there's this guy who just like there's magic in like symbols and stuff, and he like ended up tatting his whole body and fighting like these creatures. Oh my god! It's like during the night they put wards around their houses so to protect them from like all the nasties that come out at night and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a lot of weird shit. It's a cool. It would be a really cool ass game. Yeah.
You just reminded me of one of my favorite books. Well, I haven't read it in maybe 10 years, but there's a British science fiction and fantasy an author. He's a fantastic writer. He's called China Mieville. And he wrote a book called The Scar. And it basically is about this giant pirate ship that is a island of tied together pirate ships that have all been commandeered by this giant island of pirate ships that are all tied together, and it just floats around the ocean. And the idea is that they basically gobble up pirate ships, and then once you're on there, you're trapped, and then you become a part of the society, and it's being pulled along by this giant mythological shark, basically. Like this, like you can't comprehend how large this shark monster is, and it basically is pulling along this island And I feel like that could be a pretty interesting video game.
Hell yeah.
Because of what the stuff that happens on it is very, very good. Like kind of parody, lots of political stuff happening. And it's basically like they're trying to find this place called the Scar, right? So, it'd be a journey type video game, Assassin's Creed-y, possibly.
Yeah.
It was a good book. That could be a good game. There's probably a lot more video game that maybe have come from book origins, possibly.
Yeah.
If you can think of any, let us know at dadandsons@podcast@gmail.com, because we're obviously very lazy. But next question comes from Ahia Elster. Hi, Dads and Sons. I've been thinking back to my playthrough of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I've come to realize one of the things that I have no recollection of: the environments. The game had multiple reactors, slums, buildings, and so forth, but I honestly do not remember almost anything of it, while I remember almost all of Final Fantasy VII's backgrounds and places, that being original Final Fantasy VII. And it's not just Final Fantasy VII Remake. I quit Tales of Berseria because the environments were frighteningly boring, with a lifeless world. DMC5's biggest issue was perhaps the unimaginative, repetitive set pieces. Is this an issue with new games and how much graphical fidelity games nowadays require, or is it laziness? P.S. I played The Outer Wilds based on your enthusiasm, and it blew me away in more ways than one.
Hell yeah. Hell fuck yeah.
Hell yeah. Thanks for your question. 100% agree. I complained about both Final Fantasy VII Remake's environments and DMC5's environments.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, that was like a big picture in the background.
Yeah.
It's a moving picture in the background for
it's a big JPEG in the background. And isn't even that high res of a JPEG, to be honest.
There's a GIF in the background. Just oh my god.
Stick that JPEG at the end of the Unity scene.
They definitely needed some more work. They definitely needed some more work on that one. But surprisingly, it was still pretty good.
We both, obviously, anybody who's listened to those episodes when the remake came out, we both enjoyed it. But the one thing we complained about was the environments are so lifeless. Like, you have people walking around, but there's nothing to them. It's like walking through trenches from one circle to another. And it's considering the amount of things you could have done with an interesting shanty town, like, the slums and stuff like that. And also the fact that nowhere in life, nowhere, anywhere, there are just perfectly linear streets that walk from one circle to another circle. Like, it's so unrealistic. It's almost like the architectural design comes last with these places, like map planning and stuff like that, which is so disappointing. DMC5 is the same. Like, it's meant to be like London or some garbage, and it's just cobbled streets that move from cobbled street to cobbled street, and it is so lifeless and boring. And I don't know why. You are probably right in some sense that graphical fidelity, like making multiple assets that look that good, requires making lots of assets that are high detailed, which requires artists to spend more time doing these things. 100% that is a part of the problem, I think. But there are things you can do. Like, you can make realistic size environments. Like, one of the problem that games get it wrong is they feel so video gamey because you just walk into an area, right? Like, you walk down a very thin track to when an area opens up, and then immediately your brain goes, I'm gonna battle here. Because like, you've been trained, because games have followed these design patterns for a long time. It's possibly why games like Sekiro or Dark Souls and stuff like that feel so great on top of everything else, is the fact that they have these interconnected worlds that have such verticality to them. Like, you go up and down above mountains, and then you go through the mountain and you come out the other side, and you're like, oh shit, this is near the starting position. Like, I was here like 10 hours ago. Like, they have these incredibly interconnected worlds that are full of all these different environments and stuff like that. And those games get praised for that, quite rightly. But I don't know, how does it affect how you feel, Matt, about games when you play them? Like, it definitely does to me. Like, I feel like environments do piss me off a fair bit sometimes. If they,
it depends on how bad it is. I feel like Remake, it was pretty noticeable how, like, where they cut. You know, it was pretty noticeable.
Yeah.
The towns, when you're climbing up, I forgot where you're climbing up that you know when you reach that dead end and you climb up in that part of the game.
Yeah.
And you just see like that background of like things burning and stuff. Like it just didn't work right. Yes, if I think world is a big part of world building when you don't have the environments to feel, I guess, with bringing that immersion, quote, back into the game there. At least it has to be there in some aspect. Especially when you're just walking around, you're just seeing like freaking robots saying hi to you and shit. And like, oh, can you please grab 3 mushrooms from the garden, please, for me? Like, it's just like, come on, guys. We've moved past this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's weird because also, of course, the more graphical fidelity you strive for, especially like I had this problem with The Last of Us 2, the more noticeable repetition becomes. The more realistic something looks, the more unrealistic things that are repetitious and out of place and out of sight become, right? They stand out, and like Final Fantasy VII Remake is gorgeous and looks amazing. You look at screenshots of it and you're like, wow, this game looks fantastic. But then when you're walking around in daylight between the different slums, you're like, holy shit, they cut corners here. And I mean, it doesn't affect the gameplay. It doesn't. Like, ultimately, that's what matters, right? It doesn't. Yeah. But you're right, like the world building. Why do I care about this giant pizza disc falling on top of these slums when the slums are like the size of like a cul-de-sac? Like, they're just not that big and they're just not that dense or populated, or it doesn't feel like I'm somewhere different.
Like an old game, like I'm thinking about 12 because I played that recently. That first town that you're in was fine. Was fine. It was completely fine. And like the voice acting for like the guy had like a very like the little lizard people. It that does make me feel like I'm playing Star Wars when you hear those gritty those types of like it's really really good. But like like that was fine, and it was just a couple people walking around, sitting around, and the town looks decent enough. Like if an old PS2 game can do it, you know,
that old chestnut. Back in my day,
games weren't this shitty. But yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. Games weren't retextured like this.
Yeah. So
I think it's going to be interesting even more so as we move into the next graphical states of next gen, right? Like the better games look, the more textures you need to make. Like maybe this is why Cyberpunk took 10 years, right? Like, because maybe it is one of those games that just comes out and blows you away with how different everything looks. Everywhere doesn't have repeated textures, doesn't have repeated environments. But part of game dev is learning. This is what's so difficult about game dev and why it covers so many different aspects, is like the magic of being able to reuse the assets you have made smartly and efficiently to save time and also to make sure you can do stuff. But making it not obvious is like a magic in itself, right? Like flipping things, rotating them, like inverting the colors, like that kind of thing is immediately not noticeable by players unless they look clearly. So it's like the magic of doing that kind of stuff that you need to be able to get away with. And yeah, games like FF7 Remake and DMC, I don't think did that too well. Like the biology part in DMC, when you're just walking through the demons, like biology mass of flesh. Oh god, it's so repetitive. It's so frustrating. But yeah, fingers crossed we can change that. Next question comes from Luis Guillermo Jimenez Gomez. Hi, Dads. Hi, Sons. What are some video games that, in your estimation, had everything to become bona fide canon classics of video games, but for whatever reason don't seem to get the recognition they deserve today? You decide, Guillermo. P.S. My own pet example of this is Tetris Attack Panel de Pon Puzzle League, which is an all-timer for me. It's niche, should have been a bigger hit, came earlier in the SNES cycle, but if it came out in today's YouTube and Twitch environment, it should be a hit. Interesting question. Is there anything that you've played in the past, Matt, that you think was like a surefire hit that you knew was going to become like a video game staple?
Too Human, obviously. Come on now. on, guys. We all know it was a good game. No.
Do you know what? It's so funny you say that, because speaking of Too Human, actually one of the games I think was like down to become a classic with sequels was Eternal Darkness. Do you remember that on the GameCube?
Yeah.
Like, that was such a success at the time, and like it was so different, and people were like, wow, this game is, gonna go places. And then Silicon Knights obviously made Twin Snakes, but then everything else after they tried to sue Epic died.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have become a bona fide classic.
I'm looking at my list here. I try to write down everything I play for the year.
Yeah.
I try to, dude. I try to. I know there's a lot of things that are not on this list. So I'm looking at some old ones here that I put down. I wonder if, like, LA Noire, like, no one thinks about that anymore. But I guess because it's just like, I don't think it was like a classic though. So I don't think that really counts. I feel like, all right, so how does it count? Like, it has to sell a lot, but it's forgotten about.
No, I think maybe just like a game series or a game that was going to become like a part of the video game
top 10 list,
like the space, right? Like Tetris Attack. I think in Guillermo's example is you think back to the SNES and Panel to Pon and stuff like that. Like those games were top, and there was a lot of spin-offs. Puzzle League, Pokemon Puzzle League on the Game Boy Color. Like there were a lot of spin-offs to that game, but then kind of died, right? Unless recently you think of Tetris Attack and Tetris 99 in terms of like Tetris spin-offs, but then you had Panel de Pon recently come out for the Switch, which did quite well. Panemon versus Tetris or whatever it was. But yeah, it didn't become like, like a staple. Like we talk about like Halo, Smash, Mario, of course, like games that became Call of Duty. I don't know. The zeitgeist of video games.
Yeah.
Do you have any example? Anything?
No,
you think?
No, nothing good. Like, I could say stuff like Mega Man Battle Network, but like, like they had its time and stuff,
Nah,
like
you're gonna be flying that flag till you die, aren't you?
DayZ should have been a state. Well, I guess it is kind of simple. No.
It did, but it died pretty. It died. Like, it's 2 or 3 years.
No. That was a buggy ass game. No. Yeah. What do you have? Maybe I'll think of something midway.
Maybe Earthbound?
But like, that's kind of a staple, isn't it?
But it's more like a cult classic, right? Like it's not though, because obviously if you are not successful enough to warrant the sequel being localized, even though people demand it, because Nintendo obviously see the data and they're like, this is not going to do well. Even if all these people are screaming for it, the amount of people screaming for it is still so low that... But there's a lot of reasons why Earthbound seems to have failed, like how massive the box was and the fact that it came with like a scratch and sniff thing that put people off and all that kind of thing. I feel like Earthbound possibly is one of those games maybe that didn't become quite the hit, like the successful zeitgeist hit, even though it is a cult favorite.
Yeah.
I don't rightly know. You would say maybe like Fire Emblem or Advance Wars, but then Fire Emblem did become... like the giant it is. Advance Wars, maybe? Yokai Watch, actually. Well, that's more of just like missed opportunities. But that was like the next Pokemon in Japan. Like it was
what happened to that?
I don't know. Like I honestly do not know, because it was like 1 minute when I arrived in Japan, it was fucking everywhere. It was like bigger than MJ. It was like
they got a release over here to us.
It did, but then I don't know. It just didn't hit, and I think it partly because the battle system is not that engaging, and a little more even babyish compared to Pokemon. Yeah, in Japan it also died. And Level 5 now are obviously in a bit of trouble. Like they're not localizing any more games into English, so like I don't know. Put all your eggs in one basket and just ahead and hope, I guess. But I can't think of anything outstanding. Like I think Tetris Attack is a really good example, but even when you think back to that era, what carried over from then, most games that were popular during then, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, Mario, Zelda, all that stuff still carried over, right? Even through the 3D Renaissance.
There'll always be like these weird indie games that you play that you're like, wow, this is like fantastic, But like they're just indie games. Like they're not gonna be. Like Soma, for instance. I love Soma. Okay, it's the same people who make Amnesia. I think it's Machine for Pigs. And
yes.
it is great. But I know like that's not what everyone wants to play.
Yeah.
It's not what everyone wants to play, you know?
No, and it's horror, right? Which means it's always going to be stunted in some way.
Yeah.
Due to that genre.
And it's the thing is it's so much more than just horror. And I it's so much more than just horror.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of me liking it. And that's why I'm kind of interested in playing the new one that came out recently, because like they made Soma, and that's just like, it'll be hard for them to make something that's not like just like boring old, I have a lantern walking through the thing. Like there's so many interesting conversations coming from Soma that I would think that the new Amnesia had some like interesting conversations as well. I know it's like in a desert or something like that, which is different as well, which is kind of weird too. But yeah.
There's nothing outstanding for me either, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting question. To end then, because it's a Matt and Liam special, we have Buster Barnum's question of, talk about Bob Dylan or just music in general, please. Like any 2020 music or albums that we have
so
loved or reviewed. And he ends it with, I love you. So thank you, Buster Barnum.
Love you too.
So if you don't like music like George, tune out now. If not, stay for Matt's wonderful recommendations and some of mine. So Matt, 2020, it's been a weird year. As they say, art is suffering. What kind of cool music have you been listening to recently?
Man, let me go down the list here. I've listened to so much lately. I've listened to so much. I was at a Halloween thing, and we had this nice playlist going on, so I was like stealing a bunch of music. But like I got some Depeche Mode on here. You got Joji. He came out with a song called Run.
Yeah.
It's great.
Joji's great.
I can't believe that fucking Pink guy is one of my favorite artists of all time. Like it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, exactly right. I know. I still can't process that sometimes when I see Filthy Frank.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just can't even process it.
There's two different people. After Dark by Mr. Kitty. That's a good if you like some old school, like, is it 80s? I feel like it's like 80s music. And that, oh man, that slaps, man. That's a good one right there. I go all over the place, so my variety here is insane. You'll hear me listen to rap, some more raunchy shit, and to like some weird like indie, you know, in a art theater bathroom music. You know, like it's just that's how different. Let's see. I mean, I got you got a couple. Before I got a lot.
So I've been recently on a major Korean kick again, and I've been listening to a lot of Korean R&B and stuff. So obviously you got Twice. Twice are always going to be great. But like people like Zico, J-Park, Loco, Gray, all really good. If you have any interest in Korean music, just Google one of the artists I just mentioned to you. That's mainly what I've been listening to recently. But I also listened to the new Deftones album. That's pretty good. Very Deftonesy. In Japan, if you listen to Japanese music, Frederic, Nekuri Talk, they're pretty much my main ones at the moment. And actually, recently, I've been listening to quite a bit of metal, going back into metal a little bit. Bring Me the Horizon. I've just released a couple of new songs that are really good. So they're back on, doing pretty well. And then everything else just that I've been listening to this year, stuff like The Weeknd, a lot of old stuff, to be honest. I don't know, actually. I haven't listened to many albums this year, I don't think.
Yeah, I listen to singles. Well, singles. I listen to like songs mostly. I go on like a bunch of playlists. But I would say Oliver Malcolm, The Machine, and Helen.
Interesting.
Some pretty fucking dope songs right there. Go ahead and bless your ears with that. And if you want something a little bit softer, Maggie Rogers, Light On, the one that's recorded at Spotify Studio. Bless your ears with that one.
Nice. I need to maybe catch up with some more music from this year. And I think I've been listening to, apart from Korean stuff, which is all new, because I like dipped out of listening to Korean music for a while, and then I've been listening to all of the stuff I've missed, and it's been a blast. But in terms of like Western music of 2020, apart from like, you know, a bit of WAP, I have no idea. a bit of WAP.
What is WAP? Oh, you're talking about, wait a minute. You're talking about that Cardi B right now? Oh my God. What? Leo listens to Cardi. Okay.
That track is banging. Like, that track is real good. And also, you know, Doja Cat is really good as well.
There's some hoes in this house. There's some hoes in this house. There's some hoes in this house.
I'll let you do the rest.
Oh my God, man. Those girls are insane.
Yeah. That is some true power.
They're like
right
thick with it, right? That like, it's hard to describe the energy that comes from like Megan and it's a double
C. It's a THICCC.
Oh, that energy. People love that shit, man. It's good though. It's good because like mostly it's been like guy rappers who would rap and that'll be it, you know? And now women have like this like very like, I don't know, like hoodish music to listen to now too. You know, and it's quite interesting. You know, and it's just for me it's just music. Like, you know, like people like, because you listen to something doesn't, we're not gonna get deep into this stuff, but like it's just like it's just a good song. They're not telling you to go out there and be like, exactly.
Don't read too much into it.
Don't read too much into it, you know? Yeah. Because if you read too much into it, then you're not going to have a good time with anything and you're not going to be great at parties.
Yeah, and you're just going to go down a hole and you're going to find like Ben Shapiro talking about WAP, and then you're just going to hate yourself for ever even trying.
Yeah.
Just enjoy what you enjoy.
Just enjoy life, you know. Don't care about the bad voice acting.
I go from listening to metal to then Korean pop, so don't.
I keep trying to get into. I need to really like get down and dirty and get to Japanese and Korean music.
Dude, I will send you a bunch of links.
I want some rap. I want some hardcore fucking Korean rap. I want someone to slam my ears. I remember you telling me about this a long time ago.
Yes, man. I mean, living in Asia, you get exposed to this stuff. There's a lot of good Japanese stuff right now as well. Like a lot of good music coming from Japan.
So your partner is just like fucking slamming that shit, and you're just like, what's happening?
She's musically illiterate. That's for sure. She has no idea.
No.
Musically illiterate. Like,
oh no.
It saddens me. But she does like J-pop, so.
Divorce.
Yeah,
Divorce.
Yeah. We'll see.
And with that,
on that bombshell, thank you so much for listening to the Dad and Dad show today. You got Black Dad and White Dad. It's a very progressive podcast, this week's episode. Thank you, as always, for listening to the show. If you want to get in touch, you can at dadandsonspodcast@gmail.com. You can go and support us on Patreon, which we are so thankful for. It's been amazing so far. Our Discord community is incredible. You should join it. Like-minded people who listen to WAP and they're like, do you know what? Go ahead and like rate and review us on iTunes or some shit. We have like a lot of reviews on there. It's like sitting at like a 4.5 average. We should get it to a 5 because why the fuck not? And also, Matt tweets every single day, so you should follow him at MattVisual. And also, I tweet definitely not that often at Liam BME. And then George, who is usually here but is currently out assassinating the president, is SBH Bunny Up, Super Bunny Hop. But thank you so much for listening to Dan and Sons.
Thank you.
Matt, take it away. There's some who in the house?
There's some ho. No.